Welcome to another episode of CannaTalk, and I am your host, Roger Landry, the founder and managing director of the Liberty Beacon Project, and I just also happen to be the media director for CannaSense Total Wellness. I've been doing these kind of things for years. This is all about activism, but activism isn't just political. There's a lot of times when you must consider it sociological and you must consider it health, because if you don't have your health and society is not clicking, nothing else really matters. And what I found is that one of the best tools, one of the best implements for putting things in order, whether it's the health issue, whether it's things like PTSD, whether it is, and I could give you a list a mile long, and you've listened to this show several times, so you know that's a fact. Cannabis. Cannabis is such a miracle to humanity. It is the only substance growing freely on this planet where there are cannabinoidal receptors built into the human brain. Stop and think about what I just said. Do you think maybe it was made for us? All right, I'm going to bring in my co-host, and that is Ron Patton. Ron is a hell of a guy. And Ron, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and then we've got a really special guest to bring in.
Hey, thanks so much, Roger. Yeah, I'm Ron Patton. I'm the Special Projects Director. I do a number of different things. Help with some vendor procurement. I also help out you, Roger, with some media blitzing.
You do a great job, especially with the connections you have. It's phenomenal.
Well, yeah, I'm involved in multimedia since I'm executive editor of Paranoia Magazine, then also executive producer of Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis. And
that's a big one.
We're a nationally syndicated radio show on about 300 stations across the country. So I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of people and, be able to interact with them. And so that's really helped me with the networking aspect.
And that's what special projects are all about, networking. Yeah. I truly believe that. I do.
Yeah, and as I've said before with you too, Roger, multimedia is just so important. When I say multimedia,
yep,
that's the utilization of the written word, the internet, also any type of visual like YouTube,
yep,
and of course audio, like what we do with CannaTalk.
Which I absolutely love, but I really, I know she's sitting in the wings there, and she's probably waving at you like, no, not yet. But would you please introduce our very special guest, who is also a director like Ron and myself for CannaSense Total Wellness? Please.
Right. Well, we have our human resources director. She's on the board of directors of CannaSense, and her name is Stephanie Burton, and she's been on board for about 2 years now, right?
Yes.
Well, welcome to CannaTalk.
Hey.
Right. Yeah, what I would like from you, Stephanie, if you would please, is everybody has a story about cannabis. How did I get involved? What does it mean to me? If I'm doing something like this, something must have influenced me pretty heavily. This is a story we can get from just about anybody, but if we're talking to an individual whose story was pertinent or germane enough to put her in a position where she wanted to be a director of CTW, it must be a pretty good story. So I'm going to shut up and listen to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I've been around cannabis my entire life. It's something that, was quite common in my household, but my father, he had cancer. And so it was something that he utilized to help him, because he did go undergo radiation and chemotherapy. And we all know what that does to people.
Yes.
So he was also one of the first in the state of Oregon to be prescribed the synthetic version, which is Marinol, and that did absolutely nothing for him. So he was basically wasting away in front of our eyes, and decided to take his health into his own hands and cultivate his own cannabis. And if it wasn't for that, he would have crossed over a lot sooner, so he at least had quality of life.
Hey, Steph.
I was young.
Steph, that Marinol you're talking about, okay?
Mhm.
Yeah, it actually does have some good properties, but it won't do what cannabis will do. Now, why do I say that? Do you remember one of the freakiest things I said on the opening, where the human body has cannabinoidal receptors built right into it?
Mhm.
The Marinol does not trigger those cannabinoidal receptors in the human body. So the imitation can never do anything near what the actual can.
Yes, absolutely. And to see it firsthand at such a young age. My father passed away when I was 14, so that's all I knew was him and suffering. And if it wasn't for the beautiful plant that is cannabis, things would have been a lot more dire for him. And I know that's the case for a lot of individuals
Yes.
who see that as an alternative to the cut burn poison that the mainstream medical industry deals people.
Okay. I know you're going to hate this, but I have to. Every time you just bring up such sterling points, okay? Let me explain something about what Stephanie just said. When she talks about chemotherapy, and again, I never challenge anybody to prove me wrong. I dare you to, because if I say it, it's a fact. I've done the research. Chemotherapy is unsuccessful better than 93% of the time, and in over 70% of the time, the chemotherapy does more damage to the human body than the cancer did.
Yep.
I apologize. No, actually, I don't, but thank you for letting me butt in.
Well, that's like direct radiation into the body, so
Yep.
it's just sort
Well,
of relentless, and it kills the good cells as
Yeah,
well.
I
it's
mean, they have to
also
pull
the
it down.
chemicals. The chemicals that are used are extremely toxic to the body.
Yes. They kill all the good and the bad bacteria, but then your
Absolutely.
immune system doesn't have a chance
And
to
it
do its
caves in.
job.
You're right.
Yep.
Okay, please continue. And I won't promise I won't butt in again.
No worries. But so even after my father passed away, my mom basically took over activism. She was the head state coordinator for the Pacific Green Party, and so she was a big part of pushing legislation for legalization and decriminalization of cannabis.
Very nice.
And so, yeah, so this is something that's just in my blood. My grandmother's.
I'll bet you if they did a test right now, it is in your blood.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say my grandmother's great whatever grandfather is William Williams, who was one of the signer of the Declarations of Independence. So yes, it's in the blood.
Very nice. Well,
You're a daughter of the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
well, look, for anybody who doesn't know, and Ron and Steph can definitely back me up on this, there are
Mhm.
two functionalities of the CTW, CannaSense Total Wellness. The first one is the medicine, and the second one is your ability, your constitutional rights to treat your body as you see fit. It is your constitutional right. So this is just as weighted on one as it is the other, because without one, you don't have the other. Please continue.
Course, I was always, taking my freedom into my own hands and being the cannabis connoisseur of sorts. So I never had a problem putting the finger to the man. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And
Yep.
so, I'm very passionate about the plant. And basically a couple years ago with my friend Ron here had told me about CTW in the model. And I just thought that was absolutely brilliant. I'm like, how can I get involved? And basically from there, I'm involved.
Yes, you are. All right, Ron, step in for a second, because look, how long have you known Stephanie, and what have you seen? Now we're putting you on the spot, lady. What have you seen as far as cannabis and how it affects her life, how it makes her more comfortable, how it makes her life better? Because
Right.
you would see it more than anybody else.
Sure. Yeah, I met Stephanie actually 3 years ago now, and we kind of talked about what our likes are and what we like to do, and she mentioned I enjoy smoking weed, and I go, well, I do a little bit, and then she just elaborated on how it really evens her out. She particularly likes sativa, and it seems to keep her balanced. And I mean, she can even utilize sativa at night and sleep really well.
Yeah.
Whereas myself, I can't do that. I need indica. So, our bodies are all different, but she's always, talked about cannabis. She talked about her family's involvement with cannabis and the marijuana movement back in the 70s and 80s.
Wow.
As you probably know already, Oregon is a very pivotal place
Yes.
for the cannabis movement and the legalization of marijuana.
Yep.
There was a guy by the name of Jack Hare, which I think your mom or somebody knew.
Yeah, she did know him.
Who was like one of the premier growers and advocates of cannabis. So, yeah, once I got involved with CannaSense Total Wellness back in 2017. I started talking to her about it a little bit more, and she goes, "Hey, how can I come on board?" And so I told her what she needed to do, and without hesitation, she came on board. And we're both caregivers and patients, and have a great relationship with CannaSense and the other people in the collective as well. So
that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Look, Steph, this is all great because these are the type of stories that help people. These are the type of stories, and when I say stories, I'm not talking fairy tales. These are the type of stories that, and Ron, you said this the other day, when people step up to tell you how it helped me or how it helped them, people want to hear this. They want to understand this, and they don't want to hear it from a doctor. They want to hear it from somebody that's actually been through it. Okay,
Right.
so this is what we have as a collective. Now, last week we were very lucky. We had Mr. Jupe here, okay, and this is just a really great radio personality, somebody who's very dark sometimes, and I love that. But again, same thing. He came in to tell us how it had affected his life. I told a story. You told a story. Today we've got Stephanie telling her story. What we're trying to show everybody and tell everybody out there is that those of us, and you have met all but one of the directors on CannaTalk so far, all but one. What we're trying to show you is that we all have a story too. There's a reason why we came here. If you think we just tripped in here for no apparent reason and thought, hey, cannabis would be a good thing to deal with today, it doesn't work that way. You either grow up with it like Stephanie did, or you see a friend dying in front of your eyes like I did, and that's what drove me to do my research. And you all know what Ron had to say. So what we're trying to show you is share your story with us as we share our story with you, because everybody benefits from this. What do you think of that, Stephanie?
Oh, I totally agree. Absolutely. And I was going to say also, I have a pretty diverse work history or background in working in mental health as well as working as a paralegal. And one of my jobs as a paralegal was working for a personal injury firm that went against GlaxoSmithKline. So we're talking big pharma.
Yeah.
And I was involved in a mass tort for the Vandia case, and that's a medication that people were prescribed to help with their diabetes,
Yep.
and yet most of them were having severe side effects. It was destroying their organs.
Yep.
They were having heart attacks, seizures, and then the doctors, when the warnings were coming out about that, they were then prescribing their patients Actos. And then all of a sudden warnings were coming out, the same warnings that Avandia had, and then our firm took on those cases. And we did win a $3 billion litigation.
Mm-hmm.
So, big pharma is not where it's at. And so this is another reason why I'm passionate about it. Not just that, but I also worked within the mental health field, and I see how, I worked in a very extreme facility, but these individuals were basically being drugged up all day long,
Yep.
and this was business as usual.
Well,
So I have I'm more passionate about the plant than seeing the system go down the shitter and what it does to people.
well, if you stop to consider, okay? And if we bring big pharma into this at all, we're going to open this conversation up to a 5-hour discussion, in which time I'm going to be blowing steam out of my ears because I know enough about this topic that even hearing about it pisses me off. The biggest pushback we have against cannabis, which is a natural, okay, a natural God-made, if you believe in God, God-made implement that is made specifically to meld with the human body. But yet, we have Big Pharma out there, who is the most powerful organization on the planet. Now, here we go, Steph, another one of these crazy facts Roger comes up with. If you stop to consider that everybody thinks that the biggest monopoly on, I don't know, lobbying our government comes from the military industrial complex, because we're in wars all over the planet. But I need to tell you right now, okay, Big Pharma outspends the military industrial complex by 500%. 500%. Big Pharma owns this government, and not just this government. Big Pharma owns most of the Western world. If you think I'm kidding, do some homework. If you do some homework and you still think I'm kidding, you're an idiot.
Right. Well, yeah, the thing too is, unfortunately, Big Pharma sees all the potential and profits through the cannabis industry, and so they're getting their hands in the honeypot, so to speak.
They're trying to patent cannabis.
Yep. Yes, they are, which would be
disastrous.
A real travesty. However, there's always I'm a hopeful type person. And so I always figure there are ways to sort of mitigate or offset the effects of what Big Pharma is doing. But we have to, be united, and we have to look at the bigger picture of how we can help other people and ourselves with cannabis.
Anybody here wonder why I like Ron? Okay. If I could, I'd play the last 45 seconds over again, and then you'd have no doubt. All right, listen, both of you, okay? This is exactly what we were supposed to do today, okay? Just like you and I did last week, okay, Ron? And it's great, okay? It is a heartfelt discussion. Stephanie, take a couple of minutes, get a message out, okay? We know how you got here. We know that you have a passion for helping people utilizing this implement. Why don't you tell everybody, now that you're here, what would you like to see?
Well, I would like to encourage anybody who's, especially those that are on the fence about whether or not cannabis can benefit them or a loved one. I would encourage them to do some additional research, but to definitely be more open, especially if they've experienced adverse reactions when it comes to any pharmaceutical medication, because the majority of our society is prescribed some sort of medication. And if you're on a medication, then you do know their side effects. We see those warnings on TV where it's almost every warning is worse than what you're going to take the medication for.
Oh, hey,
so
Steph,
if that doesn't scare you.
Yeah, Steph, hold on a second. To understand everybody out there, Steph has made two sterling points. These drug companies make a drug, they put it out, everybody starts to use it. 6 months later, people are dying, people are having major side effects. A year later, they pull it off the market, or 2 years later. Did you know, and this is a fact, that these drug companies build the cost of that $3 billion fine they pay right into the cost of the drug? Mm-hmm. They didn't lose a frickin' penny when they paid that $3 billion fine.
Exactly. Well, actually, the government in that settlement, they got $3 billion, and they weren't injured, but of course they bankrolled on that.
Yeah. All right. Look, again, finish this off with what you want to see as a CannaSense director.
Well, I would just like to see a change with when it comes to how people look and view their own health and how to improve their lives, their well-being, just because we're all about health and wellness. And if you're dealing with a doctor who's shoving pills at your face, just understand there's no profit in a cure.
No.
and And you're better off going the natural route, and that's why you see homeopathy and naturopathy being targeted. So I would recommend seeking opinions from a naturopath or an herbalist, somebody who is definitely more plant-minded
Yep.
and understands the importance of introducing this, because as you stated before, our system is already rigged for this plant and we are being denied it.
If you also stop and consider, look, you're right, it's the denial, okay? But it's not a denial from protection. It's a denial because Big Pharma stands to lose a hell of a lot.
Absolutely.
And it's very, very hard once something is decriminalized, even if it's patented. And Ron, I think you can probably sympathize with this a little. Anybody can grow a pot plant just about anywhere, in their attic, in their garage, in their basement, if they got a grow light. I mean, it's kind of hard to regulate something to the point where nobody can have it. It really is.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
But if Big Pharma is successful in patenting cannabis, then that's going to change the whole game.
Yep. Get those GMO joints.
Everybody here needs to understand what Stephanie has explained so well and what Ron has explained so well for 2 weeks running now, is that we're making noise. We're kicking them in the knee. They're looking. They're going, ouch. For the first time in history, people like you and me and Stephanie and Ron are making a difference in the face of Big Pharma. This is the richest and most powerful corporate entity on the planet. And we are making enough noise that they have to pay attention.
Absolutely. There's power in numbers. So we just need to build this community further and get more like-minded people. And I encourage you to have the discussions with your loved ones to see if they would be open to this. And that's what we're here for as a collective. So if you feel that this is something that might interest you, or you feel like, you may not need it for whatever reason, I would say, well, one thing we all have in common is trauma, as trauma is universal. And cannabis definitely helps with trauma.
Okay, look, I need to get some closing words from you, Ron, because you've been way too quiet here. And I understand all the respect you have for your good friend sitting next to you, but we would like to hear, again, let me ask the final question I asked to Stephanie. What, as a CTW director, what would you like to see CTW accomplish?
Well, I just think we need to continue with the education of showing people a lot of the independent scientific studies that are out there regarding cannabis and how it's helping with various types of diseases, such as cancer and diabetes. And it's just, there's been a plethora of studies recently, because now that a lot of these scientists and doctors have the funding to be able to do these studies, without any type of regulation or pretense. So I think as board members and as being part of the collective, we need to continue to be really proactive and to educate people as much as possible. And we need to also temper that, though, with compassion, because there's a lot of people that are hurting out there, and we need to hear their stories, and we need to get their stories out, too, once they're able to procure medical cannabis. And, that's one of the biggest things, and one of the most, it just seems so heartfelt to hear people's testimonies, to see where they were at before they joined CannaSense, and after they got their first package and were able to utilize the medicine and say, you know what, I feel so much better now, and thank you so much, because it's made a world of difference in my life. That's what keeps me going with CannaSense, and we just need to continue with that.
I not only agree, but I'm going to reiterate, and I'm going to drive this nail home, and I got a big ass hammer in my hand, okay? Look, we have set an example. All right, out of 5 board members, 4 of them have come in front of you to tell you, to bare our souls and tell you why we are here, where the dedication came from, where the drive came from. You've heard it from 4 out of 5, and you will hear it from the 5th. I will make sure of that. But the point here is what we're trying to do is establish a trust with you. We're telling you our problems. We're telling you what we've accomplished via the mechanism of CTW, or CannaSense Total Wellness. Now we're inviting you to help us and everybody else out. Okay, you've got a cell phone. 99% of you got a cell phone and it's got a camera in it, okay? Record a 2 or 3 minute version of whatever and get them over to us. And you'll be amazed, okay, what you can do to help someone else feel a little bit better. Ron, you couldn't have wrapped it up any better. Thank you. Stephanie, any last words, please?
Oh no, I'm good.
Well, for every,
I'm an introvert, so this was a lot for me to do. So I'm proud of myself.
For anybody listening, the fact that we got that many words out of her when she knew she was being recorded is, in fact, the miracle of the day. So,
hey, that's what cannabis is good for.
It does make you talk. All right, there are probably people now that think I've been stoned every day of my life. That's not good. But anyway, because I said it makes you talk. Never mind. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm not currently medicated.
Neither am I.
Just to be clear.
Okay, but for everybody listening, because we're having way too much fun now, so I have to shut this down. For everybody listening, remember that CannaSense Total Wellness is here for 2 reasons. 1, to protect your rights, and 2, to help you protect your health. This is our mission. This is what we do. You've met Ron. You've met Stephanie. You've met Daniel. We'll get Dave out. We'll truck him out so that you can have a chat with him real soon. Please get in touch with us. Let's talk. What you can give to everybody else out here is some peace of mind. They can know they're not the only person on the planet going through this. They can know that it helped you. And if they've got anything even close in symptoms to what you've got, it gives them hope. So let's do some talking. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Stephanie. You guys are real champions. I really appreciate you being here today.
Aw, thanks, Roger.
Aw, shucks.
This has been another episode of CannaSense Total Wellness, brought to you by the Liberty Beacon Project and CannaSense Total Wellness. Y'all have a really good day now. Thank you.